Some believe UFOs may be hiding deep in the oceans, watching humanity from below.
But pumas are, an established animal. To have like some cryptozoological creature like Bigfoot that's undetected. But it's fun.
It's fun.
I want to believe.
Yeah.
But I don't really.
Well, that's like in the ocean. Like they find some big fish, or some big whale, like extra, like some, and you're like, I don't know, dude, we never knew it was down there.
There's two.
Well, don't they think aliens could live in the ocean? So, I mean, that's how much.
That was Jeremy Corbell was talking about that the other day. That they, it's hard to say like what kind of information he's getting, how accurate it is. But they're basically saying, think about the movie Abyss, where the aliens lived underwater. He was like, that's probably what's going on.
Yeah.
That there's some sort of alien base underwater or some meeting place, or that's where they hide. That's where they go to be undetected.
Do you think you're going to see it in your lifetime?
Bigfoot or aliens?
Aliens. Like, where it's like, oh, like we have to like talk to them now. We have to like interact with them.
There's a video that is impossible to ignore. There's some things that are impossible to ignore. And then there's eyewitness testimonies of people who are rock solid, totally dependable, like fighter pilots who have seen some things. Like the best example is this guy, Commander David Fravor, who was off the coast of San Diego in 2004. And this is corroborated by multiple points of data. They had this tracking system that tracks things above Earth's atmosphere, and they found this thing went from above 60,000 feet above sea level to 50 feet above sea level in less than a second. They have no idea how it's doing this. They have no idea. There's no method of propulsion that's visible. They followed this thing. They locked onto it. It blocked their radar. It blocked their tracking systems, rather. And then it jetted off at an impossible rate of speed. And then the Nimitz relocated this thing at their cat point. The cat point is where the fighter pilots, when they're doing this test, they're doing this exercise, they were supposed to meet at this very specific point. And that's where this thing had gone. Like this thing had read their manifest and knew, like, or read their plans and knew where they were going.
What's wild?
That is way more compelling to me than Bigfoot. The Bigfoot thing is just fun, but the alien thing is fun and likely. There's something going on. And I go back and forth. Sometimes I think maybe it's some sort of government drone that's like so sophisticated, and it's totally top secret. And if we ever go to war with China, that's when they're going to break it out. And then sometimes I think what they are is something that's monitoring us and making sure we don't blow ourselves up, making sure that we make this journey from territorial apes with thermonuclear weapons into some sort of an advanced intergalactic society, and that there's a very crucial moment where the instincts of these tribal people, which is all of us, all human beings, are these tribal territorial people, where you have to keep them from sabotaging any possible future progress by blowing themselves up, by killing each other, by
what if we talk to them and then then when you say that they go, yeah, that was it. Is that easy? Like, not that easy, but like you just go, is that it? You go,
yeah,
that's about it.
We're trying to keep you guys from blowing yourselves up. This is like, but maybe that's like the natural thing that you see. Like when civilizations advance, like there's a very precarious moment where like they have the capability of blowing themselves up, but the reason and the logic to not do it, but they also have these instincts to control resources and take over territories. They still have those instincts, but they have to bypass that. They have to figure out how to, and so that's when aliens start circling and just keeping an eye on us.
Yeah.
That's the primary.
I mean, that's what you would hope, right? Instead of like them attacking us.
Yes.
Because then so.
I think if they were going to attack us, they would have already done it. Like if they really could do all those things, they could probably take out our power grid pretty easy. Apparently, the stories are that they're able to shut down nuclear launches and nuclear facilities, and that they do that, and they hover over military bases, and that they just shut everything down just to let you know, hey, bitch, I can
That's
just
wild.
flip that switch. So don't get too fucking squirrely out there.
That's so
weirdos.
crazy.
MMA Show 107. What if aliens communicate without words, sending information straight into your mind?
It was one of the things that they say, people that have been abducted. I had Travis Walton, this guy.
I've seen. I've watched it.
His
Yeah,
bobblehead.
yeah, I've watched
He's
it.
very compelling in his descriptions of his encounter with these beings. But one of the things that he was saying was they were talking to him, but it wasn't with words. Like they were communicating with him, and he understood what they were saying, but it wasn't. They weren't saying things in a like, "Hey, Travis, why don't you relax? Because we're here from planet fucking whatever it is."
The information was flowing faster because it was like boom right away. What I think, you get it.
Yes,
right?
they were explaining things to him in some sort of a telepathic way.
Wow.
And it was mind blowing to him. And I think that that's probably the future of communication. Just like you can transmit information from phone to phone, right? You can call people. They're nowhere near you, but you can talk to them. You can send a video to someone. It's going through the air. It's just data, right? It's just information.
Do you think Travis and Bob Lazar and all these guys that have extraordinary claim believe what they are telling you? I don't know if what they believe is true, but what do you think they believe what they are telling you in a way that they're not lying, they're telling the truth of what they're believing?
I can't tell for certain, but I believe Bob Lazar. I believe what he's saying is true. I believe he's telling me. Now, Bob, he had one moment where he was passing by a window and he said he saw something that was small and these people were standing over it, and he didn't know if it was an alien or whether it was some sort of a form that they were trying, like a doll or something that's supposed to represent the size of an alien or some sort of a model of an alien. But he remembers he looked briefly through a window and he saw something small. He didn't see it move around. Didn't see it talk. So he doesn't know what he saw. Yeah. Because in his world, as he explained it, when he was working at Area 51, Site 4, that's where he worked. He said that it was very compartmentalized. And his thing is one of the problems with them trying to figure out, now this is assuming he's telling the truth.
Yeah, of course.
One of the problems they were trying to figure out was how to back engineer these devices, these ships. But the problem was they weren't allowed to communicate with other people outside of this very limited group of people that had access to these vehicles. And the people that were involved in the metallurgy were not allowed to communicate with the people that were involved in whatever the propulsion system was. They didn't understand what they were trying to decipher these things. But he said, and if you listen to the podcast that I did with him, that it didn't work because the scientific method requires multiple people to communicate and share ideas and explain, and they didn't do that.
You can't improve like that.
Right.
You need to share idea. Right. You can't do something and compartmentalize everything.
But my communication with him, I don't know if he was telling me the truth, but he didn't seem deceptive. Yeah. And he's a brilliant guy.
It's clear he's clearly like borderline genius. You hear him speak, he's very educated.
And some of the things that he talked about came to fruition. Like one of the things was there was a concept of this thing called element 115, right? Yeah. Now that was not really proven until the 2000s or somewhere in the 2000s. They used a particle collider and created this thing where it was a very unstable, very short-lived particle. But he was saying that wherever these beings are from, they have figured out a way to utilize a stable version of this element 115, and that's how they propel themselves. The things that he was describing were also exactly the same things that were experienced by Commander David Fravor, who was a guy who is a jet pilot.
I saw, yeah.
Yeah, and so he experienced this thing move in that same direction, that same way, where there was no visible propulsion system, but they tracked this thing going from 80,000 feet above sea level to 1 in 1 second. So that's the amount of time that it takes radar to track this. So it might have been less than a second. Yeah, this thing traveled from 80,000 feet to 1,000.
No time.
To 1 feet.
It's like that thing with the hand. He says he measured the distance between the bone and when you get in, you put your hand in it and measure the distance between your bone and the...
Oh, the scanner. Yeah. Yes, the scanner.
There is a lot of things like this. And, like Zachariah Sitchin was... there's a lot of stuff that you can think of that how could they know that at the time? But it's
well, the Zacharias Hitchens stuff is interesting, right?
Yes.
That's all the Sumerian text. The Sumerian text is some fascinating stuff because it's all from 6,000 years ago. And by the way, Zacharias Hitchen, he's very controversial. There's even a website called SitchinIsWrong.com, and it's basically scholars of ancient Sumerian who say that his translations are completely off. But even if his translations are off, there's still a lot of really confusing stuff about ancient Sumer. And one of the things is their depictions of the solar system. They had a depiction of the solar system 6,000 years ago that shows the sun in the center, and it shows all of the known planets in the outside, and they're relatively accurate in terms of the size.
Yeah, and how about the formation of the Earth? Tiamat, Marduk. I don't remember which one is what, but that's
formation of the Earth.
That's the model that
Yes.
we use today.
Well, the scientists,
the asteroid belt,
Yes.
that's
Yes.
the model that we use today. How did he know that at that time?
I don't know how they knew that. When you're saying it's Earth 1 and Earth 2, and what that means is that there was an original version of Earth, and then Earth was hit by another planet at some point in the distant past, and that's what created the moon, and that's also what created the asteroid belt.
That goes on the different direction than the rest of the planet. Like they knew that too.
Well, there's also a thing called Bode's law, and Bode's law measures the distance between planets, and it's based on the mass of the planet, and they figure out, because of the mass of the planet, how far these planets are from each other. And one of the things that fucks that up is the asteroid belt. I think what I might be wrong about this, but the distance between Mars and Jupiter is one of the things that screws that up, and they think that's explained by the asteroid belt, that some collision created this asteroid belt and created all of the, there's something like 900,000 known near-Earth objects that were created by the impact of these planets.
One thing I believe, and I'm sure you're the same because you had a lot of these guys on your podcast, like Graham Hancock,
Yes.
Randall Carson, John Anthony West.
Yes.
There's clearly knowledge that we've lost
Yes.
in the past. This is for sure. Just think about the Library of Alexandria.
Yes.
Man, imagine the knowledge that it wasn't there before it burned.
I know. Imagine.
Oh man,
Imagine.
People thinks we lost like 1 millennia, like just when it burns. That
Well,
of knowledge, medicine, botany,
Yes.
science. It's just crazy to think of. So very often, sometimes when crazy stuff happen like that, I just think that perhaps they had knowledge that there's knowledge that we lost. Like just think about the Greek fire. It's a weapon that was used in the naval battle, and it's really really known about historian. You can research. They still don't know exactly how it works, but it was so destructive. It was like, at the time, it was like a secret weapon. Like they didn't want to share, and it was known to be very efficient in naval battle.
I don't know what that is. I don't know about
Greek fire. If you go Greek fire, you'll get it. Boom. It was used in naval battle. So they used to throw fire flames, and people that are burning, they still burn in the water. So they think it was made with some kinds of petrol or they still don't know. They cannot recreate it. And it's clearly something that a lot of historians have talked about. It's called Greek fire. It's just an example that it's clear that it's a technology that we have lost.
Well, if you just look at the pyramids, the pyramids are a perfect example of technology lost. It's almost like the best example. Like those ancient civilizations almost letting everyone know, hey, there is information that we have that's so above and beyond what's expected of people from this era. Yeah. Because if you think about people that lived 2,500 BC, you don't think about someone that had the kind of proficiency to create something that, when people don't understand, it's not just that the pyramids were big, but they were so perfectly designed that when they put all the stones, they reached the top. Like if anyone was off by even a half an inch at the bottom, as time went on, an inch here, an inch there, by the time they got to the top, it would be all fucked up. It wouldn't be perfect. But the pyramids were so amazingly perfect, and they were originally covered in smooth limestone. So smooth, polished limestone that would probably be insane to look at if you were staring at it from a distance, like this immense structure of 2,300,000 stones, some of them cut from quarries hundreds of miles away, all perfectly aligned and put together by these people that lived thousands and thousands of years ago.
You know, the most scholar would say that they use a ramp, but if you think about it, like there's other scholars that would counter that by saying the construction of that ramp need to be in an angle that it could be so difficult to do that it will challenge the construction of the pyramid itself, you know?
Well, again, it's like maybe they use a ramp. I don't know what they used.
Yeah, we don't know, yeah.
But whatever they used, it's so amazingly precise that they were able to make this 2,300,000 stone structure. This still to this day. I haven't been, but I have friends that have gone. Like my friend Andrew Schultz just went. Danica Patrick, the race car driver, she told me she just went. People that I know that have been, my friend Eddie Bravo, when he went, he's like, you get there, you're like, what the fuck? Yeah. It's so big, apparently.
It's like an awakening.
Yes. That our idea of what it is, when you see it in a photograph, it looks incredible. But I guess I need to go. Because I guess when you see it in person, it's just like a complete reset. Like it recalibrates what people are capable of. Because you have to think, like, man, this is 4,500 years old.
Think about Darren Kuyu, Gobekli Tepe.
Yes.
Man, it's
Gobekli Tepe's 10,000 years older, right?
Yeah, it's like 12,000 years old, you know, like
at least.
Like how do you conceive that? And sometimes what happens is that it get infected by other civilization that passed there after that construction, so they think they are the one that built it. I think is it Pumapunku, the one that there's clearly two different technology. You see the stone are perfectly aligned with like perfectly cut. Then you have other stone that are just on top, like it's like a butcher's job, you know, and it's clearly not the same technology, the same people that built these two layers, you know?
Right.
So
well, that was also John Anthony West's concept of Egypt, that there's multiple eras, and that if you go deeper, like some of the stuff that they found when they dig deeper in the sand was a different construction method. It looked different designs, but still equally complex and fascinating. It's like there's probably many eras of human civilization, and there's probably been whatever it is, whether it's disease or some sort of a natural disaster or something that happened. Asteroidal impact was John Anthony or was Randall Carlson's and Graham Hancock's. That's their theory. Is
12,000 years ago, at the end of the Pleistocene era. But Homo sapien is date to 3,000 years old. So imagine
how many?
3,000.
No, Homo sapiens.
Homo sapiens 3,000.
I think it's older than that. I think it's several hundred.
300,000. Sorry.
Oh yes.
300,000. Sorry, my English.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Homo sapien is 300,000 in Morocco. I'm 100% sure. That's why I read about this kind of stuff.
I think they think it's somewhere in that neighborhood.
Yeah. But so if you take that 300,000. 300,000 time for an evolution.
Right.
Why would it be only in the last 10,000 years that we would,
invent such immense structures?
It's kind of strange. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's also we're so different from all the other animals. Like we're the only animal that wears shoes. We're the only animal that wears clothes. We're the only animal that really manipulates its environment the way we do. I mean, other animals think, bees make beehives and shit like that, but they don't do anything even remotely interesting in comparison to what we're capable of doing and what we have done for thousands and thousands of years. And why? One of the things that Bob Lazar said that he was taught when he was at Area S4, at Area 51 S4, was that one of the things that they were telling him was that human beings are the product of accelerated evolution, and that these creatures occasionally come back to check upon our progress. And which is crazy.
Wow.
But that might be how it works throughout the universe, is that these beings that are very far advanced, they come back and they see these creatures that are pretty close, and they give them a little boost. They push them ahead a little bit, because otherwise it would take so long. And maybe we don't have the amount of time because of the fact that we're in this fucking shooting gallery of asteroids, that these things come down and whatever progress you make is wiped out by impacts or by supervolcanoes.
It's crazy, but it's not that crazy. If you look at the belief of human being through evolution, you know, like in ancient Greek, they believe in different, they were believing in different gods, like in different times, different civilization had different belief. Now some people believe Jesus walked on water, you know, which is fine too. That's their belief, you know. If you believe that human was, you know, the result of alien beings, you know, it's another belief, you know, like
it's not
everybody believe in different things.
It's
you
not
know?
that crazy if you think about what we're doing.
JRE 2331. Remote viewers from secret programs claimed they saw an alien base hidden on the moon.
And then there's the moon.
And then the moon's weird too.
The moon's really weird.
The moon's super weird.
The size of the moon directly corresponding, like when it's in orbit with the sun, completely blocks out the sun perfectly.
It's 1/400th the size of the sun, and it's 400 times closer to the Earth than the sun. You never see the dark side, which is very weird. It's actually, I believe it's closer to the Earth than what you would normally expect for a moon.
And it's huge.
It's huge. You have cultures actually talking about a pre-moon period and it's stabilizing the climate. You have the Zulu cultures talking about this. And then here's the weirdest stuff about the moon. Apollo 11, I believe, when the booster took off on the moon, they were like, "Oh, we think it might be hollow," and it's it seems like actually the outer layer of the moon is less dense. Is more dense than lower layers, which pattern matches only to an excavation site. That's obviously, in Earth, the lower you go, it's more dense, right? And so Apollo 12, they intentionally crashed the booster of the lunar vehicle onto the moon. They put seismometers there, and they said that it rang like a bell. This is all fact. You could look all this stuff. It's super weird.
It is really weird. I know you did an episode about that with Randall Carlson.
Love Randall Carlson.
Yeah. He's got some wild fucking theories too. But the idea that the moon was somehow another place there to stabilize our atmosphere is so crazy.
It is crazy. And then you obviously have to sort of think in probabilities all the way down. Lowest probability, craziest thing is Ingo Swann, who is another remote viewer in the Stargate program. He wrote a book called Penetration, where he's basically like abducted by this guy in a suit, like this kind of Men in Black style guy named Axelrod. And he is told to remote view the moon. And he remote views an alien base on the moon. And he says that he gets it. The whole thing goes crazy. I mean, the book is insane. It's like he then ends up in a supermarket and he says that he senses that this woman at the produce aisle is like an alien or something. But a lot of people from that Stargate program remote viewed, structures on the dark side of the moon and that sort of thing. So,
well, but AJ from the Y Files was on, and he was the one that was telling us that there's photos, right, of the dark side of the moon, that someone had seen photos and was assuming that these would be released shortly, that there were structures. Wow, this is going to be the biggest news ever, and then it was never released.
Are you talking about maybe Carl Wolf?
Is that what it was?
Who was taken to, this is all his claims, and he died in a freakish bike accident a little after saying this. But he said that there was like in like Langley, Virginia, where a lot of spooky stuff goes on. He was taken to it was like inside a mountain complex, which we definitely, Carl Wolf, yeah.
That guy bikes?
Yeah, apparently not enough.
But that guy could die any time
on
a scooter. So photographs of the 1966 lunar orbiter mission that revealed large base of the moon. Can we hear what he's saying?
It's a 4-minute video.
Just hear a little bit of it.
Scan one section of the moon, then another and another, and then they would get a larger image. So this mosaic then would be put in that contact printer, and that was then a print that was issued to whomever, the press, the scientist, whatever, wherever that was intended to go. So he was showing me how all this worked, and we walked over to one side of the lab, and he said, "By the way, we've discovered a base on the back side of the moon." And I said, I said, whose? What do you mean, whose? He said, yes, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon. And at that point, I became frightened, and I was a little terrified, thinking to myself that if anybody walks in the room now, I know we're in jeopardy, we're in trouble, because he shouldn't be giving me this information. I was fascinated by it, but I also knew that he was overstepping a boundary that he shouldn't be stepping over. And then he pulled out one of these mosaics and showed this base, which had geometric shapes. There were towers, there were spherical buildings. There were very tall towers and things that looked somewhat like radar dishes, but they were large structures. So I didn't say any more to him because I was concerned again that somebody was going to come in at any moment, would catch us having this conversation, and we would be in real trouble. I realized that he was telling me this information because he didn't have anybody else to talk to. Now, probably in that laboratory, he was probably one of the few enlisted people, and he was a worker bee. And he had a high-level security clearance, obviously, but he couldn't share that information with anybody else. And in those days, we didn't. When you had your security clearance, you took it seriously. It isn't like today where people don't take these things seriously. We had a different set of morals and ethics and values. That's the way we were raised, and we stayed bound by those agreements. So it was rare that someone would do something like this, but this fellow and I were the same rank. I think he was very distressed. He had the same pallor and demeanor as the scientists outside the room. They were just as concerned as he was, and he needed to discuss it with somebody. So that was the end of it right there. I didn't take it any further than that. I just filed it away. But the interesting thing, every day that I went home, I would think to myself, I can't wait to hear about this on the news, And, so I'd turn on the TV and I'd look at the news to see if they're going to announce, we've discovered a base on the backside of the moon, being really naive, And, of course, here it is 30-some years later, and we still haven't heard about it.
Whoa.
Pretty crazy.
Yeah, but then there's the question of disinformation, right? Like, you could conceivably give people a bunch of nonsense and tell them about it, knowing that some of it is going to leak and it's going to and it won't be verified, and it's going to make this whole story seem even more ridiculous and make people less likely or reluctant to study it.
Totally. And in his case, he says that he was in this, mountain base or whatever, where all of the world's nations were working together as part of some collegial UN style space program or whatever. So that to me might be a little, beyond the pale. And I'm glad you made that point, because that is ufology 101. And I've heard you be incredibly exhausted and frustrated at UFO disclosure. And I think that is the reasonable response. It is limited hangouts on limited hangouts. It's just, we're going to give you a little bit, but we're also going to sprinkle in some falsities and some bullshit. We're going to stigmatize it. And it kind of works because it creates this initiation path for recruiting if there are any of these programs. It widens the surface area. It both conditions the populace, but also stigmatizes the thing and makes it seem like kind of a joke. And so I think if you are not viewing modern disclosure through that kind of hermeneutic lens of interpretation, and you were just taking it, accepting it, imbibing it wholeheartedly, prima facie, I think you are in trouble.
Yeah.
JRE number 2318, physicist Harold Sonny White reveals why the mysterious Rendlesham Forest UFO case still makes no sense, even to scientists.
Yeah. When you hear about stories about these fighter pilots finding these objects in the sky that exhibit extraordinary capabilities and don't have all the signatures of traditional propulsion systems, what is your thoughts?
Generally, I tend to be agnostic to the topic. I have a lot of friends that are extremely interested in a lot of things that are out and about in the media and in the literature. But generally, I tend to be agnostic, and here's why. In everything that's currently out that people talk about and highlight, it's difficult for me to take the data and the evidence and then pull that into the work that we do in the lab with some of the different test devices we work with as we kind of explore the frontiers of where physics and propulsion might intersect. It's hard to take that and turn that into some kind of an action plan, if you will. So I'm certainly aware, like David Fravor, the experience that he had with, I think he calls them Tic Tacs, right? An amazing account. And there's multiple people that saw it, multiple platforms that saw it. And so to start with, right, I thought maybe there was a small chance that was just like we have stealth technology, right, where if you want to hide a plane, what if we had the ability to project something, right, through some mechanism where we could make people go where we wanted them to go, right? Because I know there's a technology that uses like 2 different lasers that triangulate a certain point in open air, and they put enough energy into a particular location that they ionize the air, and so it creates like a bright pixel. And so they use that to create 3-dimensional displays that kind of look like they're just floating out in air. Now, they're not quite as big as what we saw described with the Nimitz encounter on the West Coast. So I thought for a little while maybe that might be something that we're seeing.
They can project plasma as well, right? Is that the same thing?
It's the same thing, right? So the 2 lasers intersect, they ionize the air, which creates a plasma.
And
right?
they can do this over long distances as well, right?
I don't know about long distances. I know they can do it over short distances.
Okay.
And so for a while there, I wondered if that might be something that could explain some of what
that makes sense.
What David Fravor and the group saw.
The only problem would be the radar, because I don't know if you wouldn't pick up that on radar, would you? Because it's not a mass, right?
So the plasma would certainly absorb a radar signal, right? Because it's gonna polarize any electromagnetic wave that tries to go through.
So it would show up.
It might. It might.
Would it be possible to make something that big, that's 20 feet long, out of that?
It's hard for me to imagine that.
Right.
But I think there's one piece of data that just came out in the last few weeks. I think David Fravor's wingman, Alex, I think her name is Alex Dietrich. I can't remember the name.
I think you're right. Something like that.
So she came out, and so in all the things associated with that particular encounter, right, one of the things I've been trying to figure out is how do they describe the specular surface of the Tic Tac, right? Because if it's these plasma pixels that I'm talking about that kind of creates a volumetric display, I would speculate it might be kind of a glowy looking thing. But I think Alex, in her account, described it as kind of a flat type of
like matte, yeah.
Yeah, so that kind of torpedoed my working theory. So, but again, while it's amazing and incredible, and it's something that people want to go think about and go try and collect more data, it doesn't help me do what I'm doing in the lab. And so I think I kind of keep, my eyes dart every once in a while over to that particular topic. Oh, what's that about? That's interesting. Right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm honestly agnostic as well. I bounce back and forth from being really excited about it to feel like I'm being duped all the time. Jamie and I talk about it all the time. I'm back in.
Right. Hal Puthoff, although he's got a lot of many and varied interests, he's a great physicist. He's published a lot of great papers in the literature just thinking about physics, right? He's got some stuff he's looked at called the polarizable vacuum. And so, in my drawer of preferred papers, I have a number of papers in there that are from Hal's work on the polarizable vacuum because I find that interesting and fascinating. And so there may be some things out there that are adjacent to the concept where you could try and pull some of that together, I guess.
Well, that's a fascinating thing for you to say because Hal believes they have them. And he believes that we have 10 of them.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I know that.
Yeah, which is just so nuts.
Yeah.
And then, he's a little agnostic on the Bob Lazar story. But the Bob Lazar story, which I'm sure you're aware of, is essentially what we're talking about. Like, you would bring in some out-of-the-box thinkers. And if you found some wildly intelligent young scientist who put a rocket engine in the back of a Honda, which is what he did, you would go, what is that crazy fucker up to? Like, let's have him look at it. What's it hurt?
Right.
The guys at Rocketdyne say he's a wizard.
Right.
Bring him out there. Or the guys at wherever he wasn't at Rocketdyne. He was at Los Alamos. The guys at Los Alamos said he's a wizard, so let's bring him out here. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, his story is I'm not too familiar with it. Right,
It's the nuttiest story of all time,
Yeah.
and he supposedly, well, they denied that he ever worked at Los Alamos, but then they found him on an employee log. And not only that, he knew the outline of the place. He knew the security people. George Knapp took him on a tour of it, and he knew everybody. He knew the people that worked there. He knew how to get around. Like, he clearly worked there. So that's interesting that they tried to deny that he ever worked there. And then from there, he gets this job where he is flown out to the desert to Area 51 Site 4. And this is allegedly, right? During this time, he can't even tell his wife what he's doing. So his wife thinks he's going having affairs. He's got to leave and fly away at 11 p.m. at night. Like, right, but you can't tell me where you're going? You want to work? Right.
Yeah, you're working late again?
The wife starts having an affair. And because of his
This
clearance...
almost sounds like a movie, right?
It does sound like a movie, which is one of the beautiful things about reality, is that reality seems so fake that sometimes actual true stories are bizarrely fictional.
Right.
So his wife starts having an affair. Because of his clearance, he cannot be working on these things if he could be under extreme emotional duress. So they fire him. They tell him he can't. They don't give him any explanation. They don't tell him his wife's cheating on him. He starts taking people out to the desert, explaining to them, you have to see what we're working on. They fly this thing on certain nights, and they do these test flights around the base. It's nuts. So he takes these people into this area. They see it. They get arrested. When he gets arrested, he gets caught there. He explains what he was doing. He says, okay, I've got to go public or they're going to kill me. So he goes public with George Knapp. Initially, they hide his face, and then he says, you know what, fuck that. Let's just film me. Let me tell you everything. He goes over the diagram of this device, and he calls it the sport model, and it looks like that. That thing that we have right there.
It's almost like a hubcap, right? But
exactly.
Gotcha.
That's a copy of it.
Okay.
In the middle of that thing is some sort of a generator that he said works on this unknown element, this element 115.
Oh, some of this is coming back to me. I think I've seen some stuff over the years.
Yes.
Yeah, some of it's coming back to me now.
And essentially the way he describes it traveling, and again, this is in the 1980s, the way he describes it traveling is exactly the way you describe that sort of warp drive, changing space and time around it. And that you would point that thing where you wanted to go, and it would just...
Yeah. That it all sounds very surreal, right? There's another story. Again, as I said, I have a number of friends that are keenly interested in this, and so I've been exposed to some of the different things. And that to me, the Tic Tac account is interesting because it's got a lot of rigorous data, if you will, that helps you go, well, I can't explain that. I can't explain that. I can't explain that. There is another accounting that I just put in the category, my brain doesn't even know what to make of it, and it's the concept of Rendlesham Forest. I don't know if that rings a bell. There's something over in the UK where there's a base over there, and some airmen came across some very weird. I can't even begin to describe.
I'm not sure if I know this one.
It's pretty bizarre. I don't know it well enough to unpack it today, other than to say it's so bizarre that when you listen to the accounts that were recorded, right, it doesn't make any sense. It's like, if you think about if you watch an octopus in an aquarium, right, and the octopus is doing something, you can sometimes understand what their motivation is. There's like a cross-species ability to, it's like communication but without words, right? That octopus wants to go eat that little crab or whatever the case may be. And so our chemical computers, even though they're different, we can look at their behavior and we can go, all right, I think I understand what that octopus might be wanting to do today, or a shark or a dog or a porpoise. But when you hear what happened in that Rendlesham Forest thing, it breaks all of my guessing machine, and it's like,
what is the story?
It's a colonel and some airmen reported some weird stuff that was going on in Rendlesham Forest. Yeah, and they went out and tried to investigate it, and they saw some again, I'm doing such a terrible job of summarizing it because I don't really know the lore very well. But
here it is right here.
Everything they saw was very bizarre and crazy looking.
We can read it.
Right?
It says, 40 years ago, a remote forest in Suffolk was the scene of one of the most famous purported UFO sightings in history. So just what did happen, and will we ever know for sure? Victor Thurnkettle was out chopping wood one morning in Rendlesham Forest in late December 1980 when a car drew up. Out stepped two men, aged about 30, dressed in suits. "Good morning. Do you mind if we ask you some questions?" asked one in a well-spoken English accent. Earlier, on 26 and 28 of December, United States Air Force security personnel stationed at nearby RAF Woodbridge had reported seeing strange lights in the surrounding forest. Forestry worker Mr. Thurnkettle, unannounced and unidentified visitors, asked if he had been out the previous night. I said no, he recalls. They said, "Did you leave the house at all? Did you see anything?" I said, "What?" They said, "Oh, there's a report of some red lights in the forest. We're just checking." And the two men, very politely but firmly, asked me probably about 20 questions. I thought they were journalists. They suddenly said, "Oh, well, fair enough. There's probably nothing in it," and left. So I bought the papers every day for the next few days to find out what was going on. And, of course, there was nothing. 3 years later, however, sightings made the News of the World front page story. It proclaimed UFO lands in Suffolk, and that's official. The story was based on a memo from RAF Woodbridge Deputy Base Commander Lieutenant Colonel Charles Halt to the Ministry of Defense. It was released by the U.S. government, described as an encounter with an apparent UFO in the forest. Since then, the sightings have been the source of much debate and speculation among UFO enthusiasts and the subject of numerous books, articles, and TV programs. In March, a documentary concluded the sightings had achieved legend status like the Loch Ness or King Arthur. The forest even has its own official UFO trail, complete with a life-size replica. Go back up. Of the flying saucer, and this is the replica with like the Hamza thing on it, that hand thing. Bizarre. Thurnkettle, UK authorities have said they didn't learn about the incident. Okay, but what is the story though? Let's get to what is the story? Scroll down more. What does it say?
Yeah, and that gets into the stuff that it doesn't make sense in terms of what they describe the UFO doing. It's just very peculiar, right? So.
Yeah. They got there, my heart absolutely plummeted. There was nothing. It was an absolute normal glade in the forest with 3 rabbit scrapes. They're all carefully marked. It happened to be roughly a triangle. Okay, what else does it say? What is the sighting? Burn marks on trees, but what's the sighting?
I can show you what the UFO looked like. But
okay.
I mean,
sure. That's what they said it looked like? Yeah. Whoa. And it had those markings on it?
I Googled it. My Google search said that Grush brought it up when he was on here, but I couldn't find like even clips about it, so I don't know that we went that deep into it.
How bizarre is it that it has that symbol? What is that? That's an ancient Hindu symbol, correct? That Hamza symbol?
I don't know.
These are different symbols.
Oh, they're different.
Yeah.
That looks very weird.
Yeah.
Huh. So what about this one stands out to you?
I put this one in the category of I don't understand if it's a real account, right? I mean, I think when you have a lieutenant colonel that's reporting something as factual, I tend not to just immediately dismiss it.
Right.
But and it's not just him; it's several people around him. What they described, right, doesn't make sense to me, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, in terms of the David Fravor talking about the Tic Tac, I can kind of, that's not totally alien to me. I could, it's trying to maneuver with the aircraft and it's maneuvering to their cap or whatever the case may be. And I can kind of connect the dots with that. But the Rendlesham Forest thing, it doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, what about it doesn't make any sense?
What they saw, why it was doing what it was doing.
What was it doing?
It just was out in the woods. It was out in the woods, with blinky lights and doing weird stuff.
JRE 2416. Dan Farah reveals claims that a non-human craft landed at a U.S. Air Force base and beings reportedly walked out to meet officials.
Hopefully it all comes out and people can legally talk about it at some point, but
can you talk about it without
UFOs
or UAPs? You can call them whatever you want.
Straight up contact events. One of them is revealed in the film actually, but there are more. There was this. Several of the people in my film
Aliens
talk about
probed them with long needles connected to wires. One large needle.
Non-human crafts approached the base, one landed, beings walked out and interacted with Air Force officials and CIA officials. And a couple people go on the record.
Disc was as wide as their house was long.
There have been
Once
other events I've
inside,
been told.
the beings
How are those beings described?
They were described as tall, slender, humanoid. And the
race.
another thing that
The
I
hills
heard
were
that
then
gave me
separated,
chills was
taking
that,
turns in an examination.
someone involved with a recovery interacted with
Such testimonies where people have talked about being abducted and used as guinea pigs.
heard thoughts in his head that said, you humans don't know your full potential.
Indeed,
And that
a
was said
real
to me by
encounter.
a very senior, older
Why
guy
did the alien
from the intelligence
beings-
community? And I thought that was pretty incredible. Also, just the extent to which
Large
the
and
legacy program is
elongated.
real.
Its
It's
mouth
not-
was just a
this isn't
slit,
like
and the
50
ears-
guys, sitting in a quiet, dark room. You're talking about a massive program with thousands of people going to work every day and dealing with this.
So she became
To me,
sterile
that
from
is
producing 48
mind-blowing,
hybrids.
Yeah.
The guy next to you at the pizza place, on a Saturday night might be working on this during the day.
Right.
The guy who, the other father
Removed
your
Betty
kid's
and
like,
Barney's clothes,
Little League game.
plucked strands
This
of
is
their
what he
hair,
deals with,
took
right?
clippings
the
of
fact
their-
that is a thing, and we had a similar dynamic for the Manhattan Project. There were always people working on it, and they kept it secret, right? And their neighbors and
outside,
friends
they
didn't know,
spotted
but this is that
disc-shaped
on
objects in the
steroids.
sky.
After the
There were
Manhattan
3
Project, which was had a budget in the billions, this situation arose, and it had to be even more secret than the Manhattan Project, because the Manhattan Project, we found out in hindsight,
conducted
leaked,
on
right?
them
There were
by
moles.
alien beings.
Right.
So we needed to make this
So
even
let's
more
see what it-
secret and give it more money and more resources and more, counter intel,
And more threats.
which is counter intel.
Startling story.
Threats. If you
Gray beings with
reveal
large
those
eyes had
secrets. But
walked
it's
them
like
into a
the more this stuff gets discussed, the more I go back to what Lazar said. Because Lazar
By all the tests they had to do to understand human bodies.
Exactly
But why would-
what these people are saying now. They've had these things. They've been trying to figure them out. They've been working on them. At least in the 1980s, they hadn't totally cracked
The
it yet.
eyewitnesses
But
say
they
a
did know how
capsule
to
like
operate them,
fireball
and that they would
emerged.
do these tests, but everything was so compartmentalized. He said he wasn't allowed to talk to the metallurgist.
There were 2 hours of the drive that neither of them could remember.
What they were assigned to
Barney-
do was to try to figure out how the propulsion system worked.
Yeah.
And then there was other people that were assigned to try to figure out how the metallurgy was.
Children
formed.
also
Because
thought the
whatever it
beings
was, it seemed
were
like it was
Zvit
3D
Wamba
printed. It
or
didn't have any
Tokolo.
seams.
Yeah.
And when he talks about it, it sounds exactly like what people are talking about today, which is
Children
really
at a
bananas.
school in
Because this
Zimbabwe
is
encountered
late 1980s,
aliens.
and he's the first guy to crack through with this stuff.
Yeah, everything is so in that secret program. Everything is so siloed out where you could have one team of defense contractors working.
It
on
was
one
late
thing,
at
not
night.
even told it's
As they
from an
drove
alien
down a
spacecraft. They're
deserted
just
road.
told, here's the thing. It might be Russia. It might be China. Tell us how it works.
Right.
They're just kept in a little bubble. And one of the
UFO
issues
in the sky is
now
enough to
is
send
that
onlookers in a
everything's
state of
become
panic.
so classified and so siloed that it's actually hurting progress. And that's a lot of the scientists in my film are voicing
We're
that.
afraid,
And,
but
one of the
also
other things I learned
curious.
recently that
Shortly after,
isn't in the film, Jay Stratton, who ran the UAP task force, he told me that during that time, he had started.
They wanted to have a
talk
child,
with one of the
but
senior
Megan could not
scientists
get
at
pregnant.
Lockheed, who was frustrated by how overclassified everything was. It even made it hard for the defense contractors to get the right.
Because how is it even humanly possible to
manpower,
give birth
brains,
to so many
time, because
babies?
Not everyone can be cleared to do the work, right?
Right.
There's all these like red tape hurdles to progress, right?
Right.
And so they had made
So,
a plan.
it was
to
September
move
1961.
One of the crafts
Betty
that
and
had been
Barney-
recovered that was in Lockheed's possession into the possession of the UAP task force. And then the task force was going to be able to put more brain power towards it.
Alien
And
life
then
is at an all-time
the
high.
head of science and technology,
Already
the
in
CIA
20
shut it down in the middle of the transfer. They had actually secured a hangar on a military base and prepped it to.
It
be
had
a
long
classified
black
hangar
hair
for
and
this
eyes
craft.
which seemed
And
lower on
they
the
were
cheek
stopped.
than
So the
And
issue of
then
overclassification.
Did they know what happened after that?
Yeah, the CIA just shut the whole transaction
After
down.
a few
The craft
days,
stayed in
they
Lockheed's
repeated the
possession.
examination,
And then that
another pregnant.
particular leader within Lockheed died about 2 years later. So the effort kind of stopped. He had cancer.
Objects flew in along the power lines and
the
finally
overclassification
landed
is
in the
definitely
bush
a hurdle
area.
for this. And our competitors don't necessarily have that. Like there's no free will in China. She can just be like, hey, you're the smartest
Like
guy
you're
graduating
fainting
your class.
and woke
You're gonna
up
go
in a
work for the
dark
nation
room,
on this,
which soon had
and
its lights.
here, the problem is no one knows it's real. One of the things I hope the film changes is it makes the scientific community know that this is a valid area of inquiry. This
Two
is real.
smaller
It's a real
capsules.
situation.
Following that,
and there's a
numerous
ton
reports
of problems for the next generation of engineers and scientists to solve, And so hopefully it inspires them.
have been spotted outside a
and
mall
helps
in
us
Miami
make
and
progress,
on
'cause
top
there's
of a
lot
hill in
progress being
Brazil.
made here.
Well, it certainly seems like it, but it's like one of the things that you guys propose in the film that I think may be the only way forward
They
is some
called
sort of a
the
mass
leader
amnesty
watched from the
to all
side.
these people that
After Betty
did lie to Congress and probably misappropriated funds and maybe stole a little bit here and there. Like if that doesn't happen, no one
On
is
September
going to push
16th, a
to
representative
make this
of
public.
Ariel
no one's
Primary
going to push for like actual full disclosure because it leaves them too exposed. And if they do have the kind of power that they must have to be running an
Hind
organization
to
of
extract
thousands of
info from
people
the
working on
witnesses,
something with
Hind
unbelievable
recorded this.
amounts of money being transferred to these programs, they don't want to let that go.
Yeah.
Like this is like it's a honeypot that they're drawing from, right?
human
They're probably
being.
still taking
Coming in
too much,
contact
or
with an entity of an
there's
advanced-
no oversight. You're still lying to Congress, and you'd have to have some national security amnesty program.
They had
saying, look,
short bodies,
in the interest
slender
of
arms
national
and legs,
security,
and
it's
large head.
critically important that we get all of our best people working on this. The only way we're ever going to really do that is to
They suffered
completely
from
reveal that
disturbing
this is
dreams,
actual,
and Barney developed
really-
an ulcer due to
this is
anxiety.
actually really happening. This is real crafts from somewhere or something. We have them. We'll tell you where we have them. And
from a UFO
I
and
think
has
right
large
now,
eyes.
people
The
wouldn't
story
even freak
begins
out
with
because I would think that people would freak out if there was some sort of official narrative of disclosure, but that's sort of been breached, right?
Told
The
the
New York
doctors
Times
an
breached
incredible
that in
story that shocked them.
2017.
I think this film is that. I mean, there's this.
She was
film is
walking-
for credible
huge.
people putting their reputation and name on the line, which I honestly, Joe, I think it's stronger evidence than any video or photo.
Shaped
These
crafts.
days,
One
you can
student
put a
said that he
4K
thought
video
at
of a
first
giant craft
that the
over
little man
Vandenberg, and half the human population will say it's AI,
Right.
or creating some visual effects program, but someone of note, putting their
Ability.
name and reputation on the line, their career on the line,
But the
rest of
people
their
we are
lives on the line,
Yeah.
to say this is what I know to be true. To me, that's the greatest evidence that exists. But I do think, to your point,
imagine coming
amnesty
face to
is
face with
something
an
that's
extraterrestrial
gonna have
being
to be
that will
figured out,
definitely
because while it's hard for anyone to accept letting people off the hook for wrongdoings, right?
and told
it
them
is-
to keep quiet.
It does seem
Classes
like it's in the
resumed as
best
normal
interest
afterward,
of the bigger
but the-
picture,
100%.
because these people just aren't good. They have no incentive to come forward with what they've learned. And so, to quote Rubio in the film, he says, "Look, this is not
insisted that her
a
students had
endeavor
encountered
to go and
aliens.
punish anyone,
The story
but we
st-
need to know what they learned."
Right.
And I think he's totally dead on. And
Is he in favor of some sort of an amnesty program as well?
Yeah, he says
For
on
of
camera in the
course
film,
started
it's like,
freaking the teachers out
I'm
too.
not trying
That's
to
when
punish
they
anyone.
called
I need to know what they learned, because taxpayers paid for this, and it's in our interest to know what's going on. But the other thing that's needed is
our
real
next
whistleblower
alien
protection.
encounter will
not,
give
not the whistleblower protection that's been passed so far, like much stronger legal protections, so that
the
people like
region.
you
The
know,
explosions
like
could be
folks I
seen
talked
as
to, the
far
special
away
forces guys I
as
talked to who
Zambia
went
and
forward
Botswana.
and then decided they thought to be forfeiting their lives. You've got to change that set of circumstances. You got to make those people feel like that's not going to happen to them.
Zimbabwean school
and,
kids.
And what I think
Or were they
ultimately is
planning
gonna have
for
to
a
happen,
mass
and I wouldn't
abduction?
be surprised, man, if it happens soon after the film comes out. I think a sitting president has to step to the microphone and say definitively, humanity's not alone in the
Detail.
universe.
He could see the little man
We have
about to
recovered
meet a tool.
technology of
was
non-human origin. So have other nations. There is a high-stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology. We need to win this race, and the U.S.
Follow
intends
them.
to lead in this new chapter.
When they
I think
finally
that
got
needs
home to
happen,
Portsmouth
like a
at
level
dawn,
set
they were
of basic facts, and I really do think it will happen.
Well, if that is going to happen, I think Trump might be the only guy that's willing to do something.
In addition to multiple UFO sightings from
very
New York
likely
to
that he does
Japan.
that. I know that he is aware of the film. I know he's aware of what people in his administration say.
Has he watched it? You know that?
He has not watched the
Through
film.
which he could see
But I know
other
he's
women
very
in
aware of
nearby
it.
cells.
And I know
2 weeks later,
that they are discussing internally how they're going to react to the film publicly. And I also know that he
dirty.
has
Their watches
recently,
stopped
very
working.
recently
Barney's shoes
tasked
were scuffed.
Tulsi Gabbard with getting to the bottom of the situation and finding out for him what he needs to know that he doesn't know.
Really?
Yeah, and as Rubio said in the film,
have been fortunate enough to survive
Rubio
such a
says
spine-chilling
on camera,
experience.
on the record, on the film, that this has been kept from sitting presidents. And he goes into detail on how that's been done and how it's the career bureaucrats.
Since reported
certain
their alien
certain
sighting
elements
to
of
the
government
teachers, they
that
were
control
met
this
with
information and
disbelief.
just wait presidents out and don't feel like they have a need to know.
Right. Well, there were some people that tried to find information out in the beginning of the Trump administration.
What had
Who was it?
happened?
There was someone
Neither
that
of them
talked
could
about it on
answer that
record and said he was told at every turn that you don't have the clearance.
Yeah, yeah. But here's the thing. Trump actually
And if you do
found out
believe these
about
abduction
the
stories,
base facts in
does
his
it mean
last
that the
presidency and was contemplating stepping to the microphone then.
What base facts?
So Jay Stratton, who
their tests,
ran the task
if
force,
aliens
he
have
said on
interacted
camera
with
in my
humanity
film
all
that
along,
he briefed that Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, asked for a briefing on the lay of the land because
a
Trump
young boy
asked
and his
him
mother
to
reported
get the
spotting
briefing.
aliens in daylight
And
before the
Trump had already known that the base facts that we're not alone in the universe, that there's been recovery of crashed craft.
Each sample was placed on a clear material similar to a glass slide.
That he was thinking about going public, and so Mnuchin reached out to Stratton to get a briefing, and he told Stratton that the reason he wanted the briefing is because he needed to be able to evaluate
This incident can
what
definitely
the
not be
impact would
passed
to the
off as a
economy
hoax.
if the president decided to step to the mic and tell the world we're not alone. Stratton tells the story on camera in the film. And I've heard a lot more about it off camera. So we know.
But then I saw that the figure had
Trump
long,
contemplated doing this
straight
already.
black hair.
Now
It was
I
not
think
really.
the release of this film and Rubio's involvement puts enough on the table that it makes it easier for him.
Or do you? Share your
I
thoughts
think
in
they
the
would have to
comments
have some
section
sort of a
below.
plan in place if they were going to say that, right? Like the amnesty plan, the idea behind it would have to be in place. If someone's
Or
gonna-
at least grab control of the situation.
Doctor
and say
stated
that
she had given
this is
birth many
real and the US
times,
intends to lead the way. 'Cause
despite
the
Meghan
other-
having
the
no
other factor that the White House has to keep in mind is you don't want Xi or Putin being the guy to do that.
Right.
You don't want them to have that.
Right.
local African
Right.
folklore. These children burst into
Something
tears.
I was thinking about with regards to that moment of a president stepping to the mic. When we entered the space race, Kennedy gave that big famous speech, right? He was like, we're going to lead in space.
Meghan managed to catch a glimpse of her child
technology,
before
like,
that.
Space technology,
What she
like
saw.
nuclear technology has no conscious of its own. It's up to man to use it for good or bad, and we're going to make sure it's used for the betterment of all mankind, and we're going to lead
These
the way. That was his
explosions
whole
were caused
rallying
by a
speech,
meteor
right?
shower.
And it
There
made
was something
the whole
strange.
scientific community be like, we're going to help the U.S. win, like, rah, 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 right? I think that's needed in this race.
They
Like,
claimed
we
they were
need
experimented on by
all the
aliens.
support of the scientific
While the wife was not
community,
imp-
academia, the kids coming out of MIT. We need them putting their brain power towards this, and I think the White House knows that. And it's also the greatest.
Suddenly,
that's the
48 doesn't
greatest
seem
TV
that
moment
impossible.
A leader could have.
But why haven't other
in the
women-
history of humanity step
How
into the
much
microphone?
do you think Elon knows?
Look, I've seen him obviously talk to you about it. I think he knows a lot.
It was too much to cope with. The couple
I
sought
don't
mental
think you
help.
get the contracts and the
They un-
clearances you need to operate in space
Yeah.
without some horse trading.
Yeah, when I went to SpaceX, I'm like, motherfucker, you know everything.
She described it as one of the most exciting
launching
UFO
these
stories.
fucking things into space without them keying you in on exactly what's going on. He's just sly about it.
Well, I
He
did
goes,
a,
well, if they are aliens, they're certainly all
Calls from
fertile.
parents. The
That's what he
parents
says.
wanted to
Like,
know
are
why
they
their
really?
kids were
I don't know,
spooked.
man.
I think it's impossible to operate in space like he does and not be aware of everything, and also at the level he operates clearance wise.
Purely because we
I
don't
held a
know
secret
what their
screening
intentions
at
are.
The National Space
Have-
Symposium earlier this year, which is the Super Bowl of the space industry. It's like 60 people, heavy hitters from the space industry. We didn't promote it or publicize it at all.
A very
but there
similar
were a dozen
descriptions
guys
of
from
the tiny
SpaceX there.
aliens they saw
And
with
they
big
all-
black eyes.
And they all seem very aware of everything revealed in the film.
Yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah,
And he's my friend, and he won't tell me.
that he realized the
He's a
figure
legend.
was
He
not
keeps a lid on it.
human.
He's a
Another
legend. But
student.
how would he not know? If it is, and some people have told me he knows that no, he knows some things. So whatever.
I'm up
But
on a
the
metal
point
table.
is, people
The table
are
was
good
so
at keeping
short,
secrets.
Barney's
Yeah,
legs
That's real.
100%.
Even people that aren't notoriously good at keeping secrets are
Yeah.
good at keeping secrets when they have to be.
Do you
Especially in
think? Do you think if you put
laughed
yourself,
and explained the concept of
interviewed Trump,
dentures to them.
Do you see him doing
The
that?
aliens seemed to have
Stepping to the mic and telling us the truth?
someone talks to him about it and convinces him it's a great idea. Like if I had an hour with him.
Over our heads,
I mean, it's literally
The trucker also had an encounter with
the single
strange-
greatest moment a leader could have
Well,
in the history of the world.
if he could be the guy that blows the lid off of it, that would definitely help with his legacy too, which I think would be a good.
JRE number 2264. Jason Sands claims he communicated telepathically with a mysterious being whose craft was stranded in the Nevada desert.
But anyway, that's where we were heading this one day. So we all packed up. We're in Beatty, Nevada, which is the Borough Inn. I can tell you that's where we always hold up at. And we take off from there every morning to go do the AM and the PM push. That's what you call it when the war is on. You call it the push. So we had one in the morning called AM push, one in the afternoon PM push. So we were all heading up for the AM push in a convoy. There's 3 vehicles, probably about 3 to 4 people per vehicle. I'm in the lead vehicle with the ranking guy. He's driving, and I'm right behind him. And then there's another gentleman in the passenger seat across from the driver, and then there's a young lady next to me. And we're all going up. And the ranking guy had been there the week before, and he had seen the craft fly by, because that one's out there on the internet. You can pull down the video. There's a report that goes along with it.
There's a video that we can watch right now.
Right now, yeah.
What would he search?
Search for, let me think, Nellis Test Range UFO 1994.
Dun, dun, dun. Who filmed this?
This was filmed by the operators on the range, because we're putting these pilots in a risky situation by playing war with them, but we're training them. So if there is any kind of a mishap or a pilot or plane goes down, everything needs to be recorded. So they
this
have.
Is it right here?
Yes. So this is being taken. This video is being taken by one of these cameras that's up on the range, and along the bottom you see that this is also trying to lock on to the craft, so it can, follow it as it goes in and out, because this is the kind of way that you want to track if there's a craft that is having problems. And
This is moving very erratically.
Right. So this is what the ranking guy saw.
Can I pause you for a second? This tracking, is this manual, or is this like some
This
sort of an
automated.
automated system?
It's an automated system.
So the automated system is having a hard time
Locking on
to it.
Yeah, if it locks on, you'll see a big spike, and that means that it finally locks on. Right now it's trying to, but something is stopping it from locking on, and they think it was the craft.
It's moving like crazy, side to side, all over.
There's actually a recording that goes with it where you hear the guys going, "Hey, does anybody know what this is? What's going on here?"
Can we hear that? Okay, the sound is terrible.
Yeah.
They need better mics.
Honestly, that's the
Do
way
we
it
have
sounds when
podcast
you're
mics?
working up there. But
I'm
anyway,
sure, but he's saying, what is that? I don't know. We're having a hard time locking onto it.
Right. This is the video operator. So the following week after this happens, this video is taken. The ranking guy who had been there the week before and saw this thing flying, he takes us in this. When you go on the range through this one gate here, it goes up a little ways, and then there's a cantonment area. It's got a very small place where you can change your tires, get gas, minor maintenance to get your butt home if you have a car that's busted. And then in the back of that cantonment area, there's 2 huts that look like campers, really, glorified campers. So the video operators are in the one that's off to the northeast of the cantonment, and in the very corner of it. And the ranking guy just says, we all have to go in here. We're going to go talk to the video operators. We have to do this. And this was because the week prior, everybody came back to garrison or back to our unit, and they had seen this thing, and they were all talking about this UFO. So we go in there, and there's the video operator. He has us all write our names down, whether we were there and saw it the first week or not. Then he makes us all sit down and watch that video. And he says, do you know what this is? And we're like, no. And then he just said, okay, thank you. And then after everybody that was there saw it and wrote their name down, we were allowed to leave. And that was all that was required. And so I was like, well, what was that all about? But then as I'm exiting, this lady that had been sitting against the wall on the far part of this little hut that we were in, And she like grabs my arm and she just says, "There's somebody on the range. Don't talk to him." And she was really, really freaked out. And I'm like, "Thanks, strange, freaky lady. Got it." And I'm like, whatever. So we all hop out, we get in the vehicles, and then start taking off towards Quartz Mountain, because right at that cantonment area, there's a hard right. There's a hard right that goes off to Quartz Mountain. And about a mile, half a mile to a mile down that road, it's all dirt road up, by the way, there's this guy. It looks like he's wearing a uniform like we are. He got battle dress uniform on. So he sees us and he starts to look like he's running, and he's got this really weird run, like his arms are kind of flailing behind him. It's like he was running against the hurricane wind, and it was like he was going to fall over at any time. And I was like, yeah, it's a bit windy today, but it ain't that bad. So it looked really strange. And then I began to notice his skin tone looked like he might be hypothermic. And I'm thinking, oh, crap, this dude's been out here. It's freaking freezing out here, because it was a very cold day, and the wind was blowing. It was, those cold days where it didn't matter how many layers you had on. And so as we're getting closer, I'm talking to the ranking guy. Hey, we need to slow down. So anyway, I'm thinking, this guy's probably in big trouble. I need to pull off my jacket. I need to give him something to get warm real quick. So I'm starting to do that, and we're approaching, and by the time I get my jacket most of the way off, he's right there at the corner of the front of the car. And
so he looks pale? Is that what you're saying?
He looked like an albino with a very bluish kind of undertone. If you could imagine,
So you're assuming you're immediately associating that with he's freezing.
Yeah, because that's all I could equate it to.
Right.
And then as I'm starting to open my door to try to administer aid to this guy, the dude in the front passenger seat screams he's got no ears. And I thought that was pretty rude, because I was like, the guy's in trouble.
Does he have a hat on? He's
got a hat on, and he's got BDUs that look absolutely clean, pristine. And when you're uprange, you do not wear your cleanest uniform. You're in a dirty environment. You wear your scuffed up boots. You don't take them with you.
So he's got clean battle dress uniform.
Everything.
United States military
very
uniform.
Very out of place. Yeah, it looks very out of place when I finally do it. But anyway, I step out onto the roadway, and this guy screams that he's got no ears. And I just thinking it's really rude. And then I close the door and I look up, and he's got no freaking ears, and his eyes are twice as big. And I just am like, yeah, what the hell did I just walk into? This guy's not from around
here.
How
far away from him are you?
Probably from me to
just a few feet.
Yeah, just talking distance.
Okay.
And I'm starting to freak out, but then he starts to talk to me, and it's not my language, but it's coming to the understanding is like coming into my mind about every word he's saying.
So he's actually saying words.
He's saying words, but it doesn't sound like anything I've heard before.
But you're understanding what he's saying.
But I'm understanding. So I know there's a telepathic thing going on here, and it calms me down at the same time, because I'm having to respond to him. And he's like, hello, I'm having trouble with my craft. I need some repair material. Do you know where I could find some tritium? And this is what he's talking to me about. And I'm like, you mean titanium? Because I didn't know anything about tritium at the time. But titanium, he's like, no, it's not it. And I'm like, well, at this point in my career, I had just left the program, so I knew where Dreamland was, and I pointed to the mountain range, because you can see for days in the desert. But I pointed towards the mountain range, and I said, Dreamland's just over there. And this wave of emotion hit me like disgust, like, I am not going to talk to those barbarians and murderers.
Wow, so he was saying that to you, his reaction to going to the military base was...
Exactly, yeah. He did not like it. He said, I am not going to talk to those people. And then I was like, well, shoot.
And it was barbarians and murderers?
He literally, that was what he called them, yes. And mentally, that's what it was. But the emotion...
Tritium, is this a real thing?
Well, that's what... I've had a lot of friends. There's analysts also that were on the top secret network that were trying to help me understand what material...
We were throwing everything at him. We're like, is it this? Is it this? And he's
like... And then
like,
finally,
no.
That's the one. When they hit tritium, I was like, that's what it was. That's what he said.
And what is tritium?
It's a type of... can he bring it up on the...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, because it should pop up on Wikipedia pretty quick. But it has some properties that probably would work.
But are you saying tritium?
Yeah, tritium is... that's the stuff that's in Loom. Like in your watch, when your watch glows, that's they make those where they're basically like radioactive isotopes that stay lit. So like if you get like a Marathon watch, Marathon makes military watches, and it doesn't need like this watch. You need the light, and the light charges the lume, and then when it's dark out, you could read the hands for like a few hours.
It's the thing that they used to put on the end of the guns, right?
Exactly, they still do. A lot, like SIG has them.
Now, look up tritium. Also, put an
tritium
end in
is
there.
just a lot. It's
I did that. That's not giving me much.
so tritium, chunky glow in the dark glitter. What is that?
Oh, these are game websites.
Oh, I see.
I don't know.
Okay, so it's tritium. Then I may be mispronouncing.
But
it.
tritium that's that radioactive isotope.
Mm-hmm.
That's the stuff that emits light.
Yep.
So it emits a weak form of radiation.
Yes.
A rare radioactive isotope of hydrogen with a half-life of 12.3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this is what he's asking me for.
So he's asking you for that stuff? Tritium?
Yep. And I'm like, I don't know where to get.
Oh, look at that. It's used in boosted fission weapons and thermonuclear weapons. Oh, great.
That sounds reassuring, right?
I wonder what the fuck it's doing on your wrist. This
is what the best image that we have of what he could have looked like.
Oh, boy. Can you send that to Jamie?
Yeah, I don't know Jamie's number, but we'll find a way to. Is that an iPhone or anything?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that an iPhone?
If I had my phone, I would, but it's out there, I think.
Yeah, airdrop it to Jamie. Do you know how to do that?
There was
How
that
dare
one.
you not know how to do that?
And there's a three-dimensional.
Your guy works with UFOs. You better know how to do that.
Well, there's a three-dimensional image of the craft as well that is really spot on from what I saw that day.
Yeah.
Because not only did I see this guy running towards us and talking to him, but off the shoulder on the north side of the roadway, that's where the craft was just resting on the desert floor. And I got a really good look at it at that point. And this guy did a 3D rendering of the description, and it's spot on as I've ever seen. It's almost perfect.
So he asks you for tritium. You tell him this is what it looked like.
This is what the guy looked like. Pretty close to it.
Yo.
The nose was a little bit rounder on the end, but that was a really good rendition. But yeah, his eyes almost came out to here on the temple.
Wow. And that would freak me out.
It freaked me out. I mean, honestly, I'm not an easy guy to get freaked out, but that really put that like you just saw an alligator pop up out of the water kind of thing.
Right. So when you tell him go to Dreamland, it says I'm not going to go where those murderers and barbarians are, and then what happens?
And he said no. So I was like, well, where else can I possibly point him to? Because I'm like, I don't know any metallurgists or whatever. So I'm thinking to myself, and I relate to him. I said, well, I'm taking college classes down in the city of Vegas, Las Vegas, at the community college. But I have a geophysical professor that I'm taking a class from. Maybe he has a metallurgist friend, and he's like,
so you're thinking at this time though it's a metal.
I am, yes.
Right, because you're thinking it's some kind of like titanium, some type of.
Right. And there's also
This is the 3D image of what the craft looks like?
That is almost as spot on as I've ever seen. That is about it right there. That's almost exactly what I saw resting on the desert floor.
And so you're trying to find different people that you can connect this being to.
Yeah.
And what is it saying to you while you're...
He thought that was a good idea, I think, or he was like, I mean, made him, he had that kind of, and he wanted to take action, so he doesn't really even say goodbye. He just kind of turns and off he goes back to his craft. And I'm thinking, well, okay. And I get back in the car, and sometime during that conversation with this entity, I remembered looking over at my friends in the car, and they had the weirdest look on their face, like they were all zonked out, totally zombied, like they were just drooling on themselves.
Were they just because they were flabbergasted, or was it because something was going on?
Well, I figured out that maybe it was done by this entity because none of them seemed to even remember the incident. Only a few people seems to remember that we stopped, that we had talked to somebody on the roadway, but it was mainly the people that were in the back of the convoy.
So they didn't see it up close like you did?
Right, like we did. The people
so
that were
how far
right
away
there,
would they be?
They'd probably be a good 2 car lengths behind us.
That's still enough to detect whether or not someone looks blue, though, right?
Correct, and that's probably what they saw. But you know me, I'm kind of wide and I'm big. I was very muscular back then.
And you're standing in front of this thing.
So they'd have a difficult time because this guy stood about a good half foot shorter than me. And so they probably could see his arms from time to time, maybe catch a glimpse of his face or something. So they probably didn't get a very good view because if you're looking at me, I'm standing right next to my door, and they're behind me, kind of almost obfuscated by just the angle that they're looking at him. So all the windows are tinted in those vehicles.
JRE number 2348, Lucas Nelson explores the possibility that some UFO encounters could be linked to mysterious phenomena humans still can't explain.
Biblically accurate angel.
Ooh. Biblically accurate angel.
Have you seen what a biblically accurate angel looks
Yeah, they look like aliens.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah, they look like geometric patterns.
Yeah.
I always wonder what Tucker Carlson's convinced that aliens and devils are that's what like angels and devils and aliens are all the same thing. He thinks that they're not visiting from somewhere else, that they've always been here, and that there's some sort of spiritual aspect to like the UFO encounter, UAP phenomenon.
Oh, I see. Yes. Well, there's a lot of interesting pictures that are, drawn on cave walls and things like that.
Oh, we've gone over a shit ton of them. Yeah. And then also ancient religious art where it looks like people are in vehicles flying through the sky. I'm sure you've seen those
I've
too,
seen
right?
those too.
Yeah, like what is that? Like what are you trying to... There's no other stuff that you're in that thing that's fantastical. Mm-hmm. Everything else is like an accurate representation of life at that time, except for these people that are in these flying things in the sky. Like what is that?
Yeah.
We just don't know, unfortunately.
When I looked at all of the credible UFO reports, the only ones that really had no explanation, I actually asked ChatGPT, of all of the credible UFO, of all of the UFO reports, which ones have not in some way been sort of explained, right? And which ones are the ones that are still like, and the one that was not, the one that's still sort of outstanding is the USS Nimitz experience.
Yeah. Commander David Fravor.
Right.
Yeah, I've had him on the podcast talking about it.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that seems to be the most compelling.
There's other ones, though.
Yeah.
Ryan Graves, he's another fighter pilot, and that was off the East Coast. So the Nimitz is off the coast of San Diego. But off the East Coast, they upgraded their sensors in 2014 on the fighter jets and then immediately started encountering these things that defied known physics that were in the sky. And, and these guys had these encounters with these things that were like a cube inside of a sphere that's like motionless at 120 knot winds and no heat signature and moving through the sky. They don't know what the fuck they are.
What do you say to the theory of the possibility that is sort of black ops? Like the idea that the SR-71, I think,
Blackbird.
The Blackbird. There's a company called Skunk Works, right? And they were responsible for the declassification of that aircraft, and then I think the F-111 or the stealth bombers, and but since then, and that was like 25 years ago or more, there have not been any more declassifications.
Yeah, it's a good argument.
I'm curious as to like what in 25 years, based on the technology that we've been able to see that makes it to modern society, how much is held back, and what we don't see, it just interests me, and I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm not asking myself whether I actually believe that it's almost unlikely that we have that technology, but because I feel like it would just take so much more than we may be capable of to cover it up, but maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think it would. I think there's a high likelihood that a lot of this stuff is ours. And I think one of the reasons for that statement is that this stuff always happens over military airspace.
Yeah.
East Coast and West Coast. Like, so the East Coast stuff, the Ryan Graves stuff, they're doing it over areas where these fighter jet pilots run training missions.
Yeah.
And then the same thing as the West Coast stuff.
Right.
Like where it's off the coast of San Diego, which is like tons of military out there.
Yeah.
I do believe that there's some programs that are operational, and there's a great podcast. Jesse Michaels has an amazing YouTube channel he's covered this stuff like really extensively, and he's a brilliant guy.
Mm-hmm.
He really understands it. And they were working on some anti-gravity technology in the 1960s.
Yeah.
And most likely
Yes.
they continued that work.
Yeah, artificial horizon technology and stuff like that. You know, that I mean, it's got to have come far since then.
Yeah, and there's the idea that they could hide all that stuff. No, they could never hide it. Of course they could. Of course they could. They definitely could. You're being naive. You're being naive as to how much the government
No,
can hide.
I'm only asking the question.
Not you. I don't mean you.
Yeah,
I mean
no,
people that say that.
I actually pretty much. That's where I lean towards when it comes to that.
I think some of it, but some of it also could be from somewhere else. And I think some of it just exhibits, like the Nimitz one. Okay, this is 2004. So this Tic Tac goes from more than 50,000 feet above sea level to sea level in less than a second.
Yeah.
Like 7/8 of a second.
Sure.
Like, that's crazy.
That is.
That's crazy.
And you're right.
Like,
and
what is that?
And it changes it when you remember how long ago these things were being seen.
Right. Because this is 2004. But then you go back to the 1960s. If they're really working on anti-gravity technology back then, it's possible that they could have created a drone.
Right.
The thing is, like, could a human being survive inside of those things at those extreme speeds? Well, the question is, like, what are they experiencing in that? Because if it's a gravity device, if it's moving, if it's manipulating gravity, so it might not have G-forces at all. It might be operating in a completely different paradigm.
Yeah, well, there may be sort of just, trillions of alternate sort of, momentum shifts in the outside protective layer that balance out whatever's happening on the inside to the point where, they're using just crazy technology.
That's also why the argument is that they're blurry. Like, so a lot of the photographs of these things are blurry. It might be because they're actually existing in some sort of a gravity, like, void.
Yeah.
And what you're seeing is not exactly what's there. You're seeing it through, like, a dirty windshield.
I've seen some stuff.
Have you?
Yeah.
What have you seen?
When I was in Maui, twice I've seen something that I could not explain. The one time I looked up, and about 9 of us were hanging out. And we all looked up at the same time to see an orange orb. And it looked like it was 100 yards away, maybe 200, just floating, kind of observing. And then I swear it seemed like as soon as enough people saw it, it went whoosh, and then it went whoosh, and it moved like nothing else I thought possible at the time. It went out of the atmosphere. And it was crazy, faster than any drone. And this was back in like 2004, 2005, maybe. So it was we were all, young. I was maybe a little teenager, so it was probably like 2006, But it was like, it was crazy. I'm not telling you. It was like, well,
a lot of them happen near the ocean too, which is interesting.
And another one, I was out on Lanai, and we were hanging out with some friends, and we were laying down on the lawn, and when you're out in Lanai, on the backside of Lanai, there's no light pollution at all, and so you have just this big giant fishbowl of stars, and it's the most incredible. It's like you're sitting in a
spaceship.
In a spaceship, exactly, and you feel that you're on spaceship Earth at the time. Like you are on that rock hurtling through space at that point. And I saw this. It scared the girls. We all saw this pulsing colored thing go from one side of the horizon to the other, but in a very, like, it was like pulsing different colors, and it was like really interesting. And so, who knows what that could have been, but it was quite interesting.
Well,
I'll never forget
vast majority of the ocean floor is unexplored.
Right.
And so this is the theory, is that if you were going to set up a base here to observe human beings, if you came from somewhere else, you would probably do it in the ocean, especially if you have the kind of technology that will allow them to travel here from other star systems, would also allow them to not be intimidated whatsoever by
the
ocean.
pressures.
Yes.
I mean, that's, I guess, the deep pressure is what would be the, it's almost the opposite of being in space. The vacuum, and then you have the deep pressure of that like, with the.
But there's videos of these things
situation.
going in the water and not creating a splash.
Yeah.
So, like, what is that? Is it a hologram? So is it not a physical object? Or are they doing something that allows them to not interact with any physical thing on Earth? Like some sort of a void that they travel through. So they can go through the trees. This is like part of Jacques Vallée's research, too. In one of his books that was really fascinating was this woman observed this, like, egg-shaped thing. And when it took off, it went through the trees. But it didn't hurt the trees. But it was on the ground, like as a physical object, and when it took off, it went through the trees.
Well, I wonder if then, we're talking about, like, bending space-time.
Yeah.
At that point, are you creating some sort of, like, warp?
Yeah, you're creating some sort of a
warp drive thing.
That's the idea.
Where you're just, like, warping space and time around a centralized location, and you sort of have to be... use sort of the, these like different sort of exotic forms of matter and having an understanding of exotic matter, which we're now just starting to understand that there are these exotic matter types that, that work in these weird ways. But if you read about it now, the only information available is that we're only like cracking the surface of the understanding of these types of matter. And
maybe
like
we are
hundreds of thousands of years away from understanding that.
But I mean, that's that old saying that any technology that's sufficiently advanced is indistinguishable from magic. Is that Carl Sagan said that? I forget who said that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're looking at something from 1,000 years from now, it would seem like magic. I mean, if we continue, we don't blow ourselves up, and science and AI continue to figure out more compelling uses of universal energy, like whatever background energy that we have.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Well,
Who knows what human beings will be capable of? So you got to imagine if something's visiting us from somewhere else, especially if they have artificial super intelligence.
Yeah.
If they've traversed this journey that we're on, if they've gotten to the point where whatever we're currently investigating, whatever they're working on right now in terms of like super intelligent AI, what if they've gone through that and they're 1,000 years more advanced? All that stuff would be probably simple for them to be able to go through the water, to have these transmedium crafts that are capable of flying in the air, through the water.
Right. Well, the interesting question for ourselves is how do we get to a place as a society to where we can trust in our science, we can trust to say that we trust it enough to fund it,
Well, that's not trust in the science. The problem is the human beings that are in possession of the science.
Well, but that's what I mean. Like, how do we restore faith in that? And because it's not all bullshit. There is real, like we wouldn't exist where we are without the science that has brought us to where we are.
Yeah, technology.
And technology.
Yeah.
And so understanding and trusting and figuring out how to restore faith in certain institutions that we have, because we need them to survive and to keep going, So it's like not tearing down the airplane while it's falling. You have to repair the airplane from inside, and then keep it flying if you can, So is there a way to like right the ship while we're in it?
Well, I think the problem is a lot of this stuff is military funding, right? So a lot of the applications for any sort of like super advanced technology is going to be weapon systems.
Right.
And that's what everybody's terrified of. What they're terrified of is that you're going to develop more efficient ways to kill people.
Yeah.
And that's really the only way these things get funded. They're not going to...
No, that's the problem.
Yeah.
I'm saying. I'm like, well, how do we switch it so that we can, have people in power that really are looking out for the future of humanity.
Yeah.
And then have people that actually...
JRE number 2365. Anna Paulina Luna reveals claims that members of Congress were denied access to classified information related to mysterious UAP incidents.
I was stationed at Portland Air National Guard. My job there was an airfield manager, so I would interface and work a lot with the F-15 pilots at the unit. And so there had been an airspace incursion that had taken place when I was still at the time at the Guard. And I remember kind of talking to some of the pilots about it, and I was like, what was that? And they're like, we can't really talk about it. No one really wanted to address it. And so from what I'd gathered, that had been likely a UAP. And so that kind of was my perspective. Granted, I also grew up in the generation of the X-Files and, I don't know if you remember 94 Independence Day. So like for me specifically, I didn't look at it with like a crazy lens and perspective. I'm like, you never know if, we're the only ones out there essentially.
But why did you assume that if it's a top secret incursion that he couldn't talk about, that it wasn't just a military craft from another country?
Because of the way that he was discussing it.
What did he say?
So he had been, he didn't want to, from what I gather, get taken off flight status. And he's like, I really can't discuss it. We couldn't really identify it essentially, and it had outperformed them. And so that was my first, from a military perspective, kind of experience with someone who basically, there's a stigma within the flight community. Do you want to lose your security clearance? Is there this level of crazy that people kind of brand that will stick with you and kind of ruin your career?
But doesn't he have instrumentation on his jet?
Well, at the time, right? So it's an older platform, but he really didn't want to even talk about it. And I bring that up because now with our investigation and the task force that I run, actually the reason why the task force was formed was because of an event that happened at Eglin Air Force Base where both myself, Representative Matt Gaetz, and Representative Tim Burchett actually had responded and gone to investigate multiple Air Force pilots that had come forward in regards to UAP incidences that had occurred, and they were alleging that the Air Force was covering it up.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that was that, and I'm happy to go into detail on that one, but what I will tell you is the stuff that I saw at Eglin, how the military responded, me being, a former service member, and then ultimately what I saw with the pushback of the military not even wanting to share with Congress information, which is a big problem because when you have Congress that's supposed to be the advocate and voice for the American people, the oversight body, and you're being denied access, not just from a base commander, but high level up at the Pentagon, even Secretary of Defense, it's a problem.
Do you think that it's possible that these are U.S. vehicles that are top secret?
I definitely think that there's a level of advanced technology that the U.S. government has. And I think that tech can be housed within the defense contractor realm. And of course, some information is going to be classified. But I can also tell you, and this might sound crazy, but based on our investigations and stuff that we've seen, okay, there is definitely something that I think would rival what we know currently with physics, and a tech that potentially is out there that we don't have the ability to reproduce, because it would basically be like dropping a cell phone right off back during the time of maybe caveman. So we just don't have the tech to develop it yet. What I can also tell you is based on our interviews, and this has been something that you can go back and watch with the congressional hearings, but I was actually able to ask some of the witnesses, what are these things? And they keep saying interdimensional. And then when you talk about the interdimensional aspect of, are these things pre-existing, maybe outside of what we currently know as our own dimension? That stuff can kind of all sound crazy, but at the end of the day, my job as an investigator is to receive all the information, decipher it, and then ultimately from a congressional aspect, if you do have contractors that are withholding information or operating outside of the purview of the federal government, there's budgetary issues, but there's definitely something that I can tell you with confidence that exists that we don't know how to explain currently.
So when you say that it operates outside our understanding of physics, what specifically are you saying? What happened?
To I guess break it down in simple terms is that I think that some of the tech that exists, that whatever these things have, these energy things have.
Energy things? What do you mean?
Well, they call them interdimensional beings. I think that they can actually operate through the time spaces that we currently have. And that's not something that I came up with on my own. That's based on stuff that we've seen. That's based on information that we've been told. And then also, too, I think that there's this historical aspect of, this gets into the deeper theories and concepts of religion. And I think the history that we currently know, and that kind of spins off into another topic of, you have the modern day Bible, you have this aspect of Bibles or books of the Bible that have been removed that explain and kind of touch on these topics. And I think that we're in a time and age where you have such a vast amount of information that we have access to via social media, via your cell phone, via the internet. And so it's really changing the way that we understand, the origins of life and the spiritual reality that we know.
When you
currently.
say interdimensional beings, that they know that these are interdimensional beings, how do they know that?
Based on testimony, would be based on witnesses that have come forward. But what I can tell
So
you
the
is
witnesses just were told that they were
no,
interdimensional?
that they've seen things. And what I can tell you without getting into classified conversations is that there have been incidences that I believe where very credible people have reported that there have been movement outside of time and space.
That's very vague.
Yeah. So, look.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Look. Have I seen a portal open? No. Have I seen a spaceship? Personally, no. Have I seen evidence of this? Yes. Have I seen photo documentation of aircraft that I believe were not made by mankind? Yes. Is there historical significance to this? Yes. Is there multiple events that go back to, I would argue, maybe even before the time of Christ that have documented this in text? Yes. So do I believe that the government has access to certain technology? Yes, to an extent. And I believe that certain contractors potentially have back engineered this tech. I think that that's what can explain the advancements that we're seeing. But I also believe that this is a dangerous level of hidden information from the American people, because if you have an aspect of the federal government, which I can tell you, I, with two other members of Congress, were denied access to information at Eglin Air Force Base pertaining to whistleblowers because of the fact, and we can get into that story and what happened at Eglin in a second, but we were denied access and told that we don't have security clearance or the read-in authority on a special access program. That's a problem, because I'm supposed to represent and be an investigative body, and you have then people who are unelected that are operating basically in secrecy, and that's a problem. That's a big problem.
And so how do these people have the authority to do that?
I think it's been decades of classified secret information, then also this aspect of the intelligence community that's been empowered. And it's kind of serendipitous with timing, because when you talk about the intelligence communities and what they've done essentially to the trust in this country with the American people, I think this goes all the way back even into JFK, with how they basically have operated outside of the purview of Congress and basically to an extent have gone rogue up until recently. You're seeing a big push and pull to try to rein in these intelligence agencies currently.
Yeah. So what I want to bring it back to evidence. You said that you've seen evidence. Like, what kind of evidence have you seen?
I have seen photos. I have seen...
what have you seen photos of?
So I was in a skiff, and I can't discuss all that was in a skiff, but what I can tell you is based on the photos that I've seen, I'm very confident that there's things out there that have not been created by mankind.
It seems crazy that people have access to information that shows that there's something outside of us that is more intelligent, at least more capable than we are, and they hide it from everybody else.
What I can tell you is that when you have thousands upon thousands of people around the planet throughout time that have reported something.
Right.
To say that those people are crazy, to say that, the whole concept of even just asking the question that you might not necessarily be psychologically sound, that in itself, that's a disinformation campaign to get people to shut up about it. And that's a problem. We know that the U.S. government has not exactly been clean, and a lot of what they've done with the American people, specifically to the topic of UFOs.
Which makes you think that it's probably because there's something there. If you think about the motivation they had with Project Blue Book, when J. Allen Hynek was running Project Blue Book, this specific intention was to discredit all stories.
And he ended up ultimately, though, after all of his investigations, becoming someone that was like, I think there's something here. But that's true. By the way, a lot of people might not necessarily go onto Google and look up that information, but you can actually look up the declassified reports from Project Blue Book. What's also interesting, though, is when we're talking about tech, right? The ability for this tech, being that it exists, to change dependence for entire governments on things like fossil fuel, et cetera. It's look, I think everyone has a moral obligation to do what they think is right, okay? And so if you're in a position of power and you see something wrong and you're not addressing it, I think, this in itself, getting the truth out there for people to decide for themselves. I'm not telling you what to believe. I'm just telling you in our investigations and what we are pushing for in regards to transparency. I would like to see the federal government roll out some of the stuff that we've been given access to, because I think that information belongs in the hands of the American people. And it's not even just the U.S. government. I mean, there's other countries around the world that have done certain things like this. Now, look, I've had a lot of crazy people show up at my office and say, I've heard it all. Yeah, I've been to Mars. I have a chip in my brain, all this stuff.
They all have chips.
We had this one guy that showed up that was like trying to give us a USB. He's like, put this in your computer. They're going to kill me for this. And like runs away. And I'm like, I'm not putting that in my computer. But based on our investigations, what I will tell you is, there's been 2 members of Congress that are actually helping to lead out these investigations with me. And the reason I say that is because up until last Congress, if you even said the word UAP or UFO, people actually told us that if we went forward with these investigations that we were going to ruin our political careers. And so, we're in the mindset of, well, like, why wouldn't we ask these questions? And also, too, if no one wants to touch it, like, there has to be something here, right?
Right.
And so in these investigations, I mean, the amount of people that will come up to us, very successful people, to multiple members of Congress that believe the same thing, it's definitely changed in regards to the stigma that used to exist about disclosure and all this. And so what we're trying to do currently was there's a big documentary that was filmed about 1.5 years ago, and we're trying to get a screening up on Capitol Hill. But look, I think a lot of people say, well, this is a distraction from everything else happening in the country right now. And all I'm simply trying to say is it's not a distraction. The people that are kind of helping to divulge all this information, you have an intelligence community, Tulsi Gabbard, Radcliffe, Kash Patel. They have been truly, in regards to our other investigations, extremely transparent and wanting to get this information out. But it doesn't mean that within these intelligence communities there isn't pushback. And so part of the reason why the task force was formed pertaining to things like UAP, pertaining to things like the Jeffrey Epstein stuff, pertaining to things like the JFK, MLK, and RFK investigations is because even though we don't hold declassification authority, what we're trying to do is push these agencies and be, if you will, the pit bull and the attack dog on trying to get this information released. And to a lot of these agencies' credits, they've been extremely transparent, and we have gotten wins specifically on the JFK stuff, and we're still looking to declassify and ask specifically on the UAP topic.
What would be the rationale for keeping a photograph of a known absolute not of this world craft from the American people or from the world? Why would anybody think that would be the smart thing to do, is to limit the access of that information to a very small amount of people?
I think that part of the fear is that you have advisors that think that, the American people or humanity might not be able to handle it. There's this protective complex, but then also too, I think when you are talking about these things, for a lot of people, I think that it kind of can rock your world a little bit in regards to where you stand in a faith perspective. And then also, too, an aspect of, well, how do you even begin to explain it? And all I'm going to say is, look, and we can go into some of the books that were removed from what we know as the modern day Bible, but I read through the book of Enoch multiple times. And I'm not saying that these things are angels. Okay, that's not at all what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that depending on where you are in regards to your whole perspective on whether or not God exists, like I believe in God, I'm a Christian. There has to have been, and there's admissions that there was other creations that God made, but that we were the most prized creation. And so I think that this can open up a bigger topic of discussion.
JRE 1976. James Fox explores the mysterious Varginha incident, where witnesses claimed the military captured a living alien in broad daylight.
So we were following and pleading with him all the way out there. Please, just tell us, please. I swear on my life this happened. He gets in the car, doors open. He looks up, and the only reason why I'm telling you this because he died. He looks up at Marco and I, and he goes, "It happened." Closed the door, and off he went. Now, the reason why I share that is because that's not something that I can put any weight on for the documentary for people like you, right? But as a personal message for me, knowing that level of validation on the inside, it kept us going. It was like, okay, why on earth would he have done that? Why on earth would he say? And that kept Marco and I going, and that was a personal level of validation that.
Is there any conventional explanation why the military shut everything down? Why they had military barricades set up around that area?
No, they did try to say that the creature was this guy who's got like some deformities. But I've seen the guy Modine or something like that. But you talk to the witnesses.
But why would the military shut the town down because a guy with deformities?
And then for the doctors in the hospital, they said, there was like a midget having a baby or something weird, just something that was just so ridiculous. It was like, and you talk to the witnesses, and they're just like, oh, come on, I'm not even gonna, that's laughable at best. I mean, these girls came within 8 to 10 feet. Three women, Katya, 2 sisters, Liliani and Valkyria, 14, 16, and 21. They got within 8 to 10 feet in broad daylight of this creature. And one of the things that doesn't come across in the film, when they saw this thing, they're looking like, what are we looking at here? They're walking through this field, and it's up against a cinder block wall. And one of them was looking at it, what is that? And it was crouched by the wall. It was weak and feeble. And one of them kind of like screeched. Like, what is that? And it turned, and it looked right at the girls, locked eyes on them. Liliana grabs her younger sister, who's 14, Valkyria, and hightails it out of there. Katya is 21. She's frozen in her tracks, locked eyes with this creature, and it's communicating with her. Please help me. He wants help. It's weak, and it's feeble, and it's scared, and it's crouched down. Liliani realizes that Katya is back there. She gets, 100 feet down the path. She leaves her sister, stay here, I'm going back to get Katya. She runs back. And I asked Katya, and I asked all the girls, during that moment of contact, when you lock eyes, I know it's only a brief second, but during that moment of contact, what did you feel? Like, put me there. That's where the title comes from, Moment of Contact, because that was when they locked eyes on this creature. And that's when Katya said, help me, I'm scared. And it was feeble and suffering. And it's a very powerful moment. And these girls have been saying the same thing. The mother, it's the first time I'd ever reported on these so-called like men in dark suits that show up and intimidate witnesses. Honestly, I've been hearing about those cases for so many times, but I've avoided them because it's got so much baggage from men in black. It's just ridiculous. I just didn't even want to be associated with it. But I'd heard it. I can go on until I'm blue in the face. I go till tomorrow morning with the amount of cases, with generals too. But this time, when the mother said that these men showed up and tried to get the daughters to say they were lying and offered her a briefcase full of $100 bills and they could relocate, I don't know. For some reason, I said, okay, for the first time in 25 years, I'm going to report on these guys. And I did. And it's in the movie. You can hear the mother talking about it, and she's so emotional. And the mother came back to the location where it happened, the smell, that stench, and the footprint on the ground. I mean, everybody talks about that stench, that it was so... They said, if you ever take like a skunk, multiply that by like 100,000, that would give you some indication of the level of like how putrid and nasty. It was paralyzing. And it stayed in the areas, like at the hospitals when they did the x-rays, and everybody talks about it. That stench, it was unbelievable. Like it fills your navel cavities and doesn't leave for a week. It was incredible. And they all said the same thing.
And they couldn't get it out.
They couldn't get it out. Yeah, they sanitized the hospital. The guy said that he had to close off that wing of the hospital while they were sanitizing it because it was so intense. So
How long did it last for?
I heard days and weeks is what I heard from people. And even the mother said when she went to where the creature was, she said that the stench, even there after the creature was gone, got in her nasal cavities, and she tried to flush it out with water and saline or whatever, and she just couldn't get it out of her nasal cavities. Really crazy. But they all did. I mean, everybody talked about that stench, I mean, the military officer, the guy that drove the creature around, I was sitting across from him. You can't see his face, but I did. And I'm looking this guy in the eyes. I'm thinking, I could be looking at a guy that drove a fucking alien around. You have no idea, dude. You have no idea.
How did he describe it?
So fucking intense. When I came back from that trip, people were like, how was your trip to Brazil? What was it like, man? They got great, smoothies and coffee. And I'm just like, you guys have no idea. I think think an alien spaceship crashed, and they recover live aliens. And we made contact, and the Americans came in. That's what I'm thinking about. So I told a couple people. On the last trip I came back, I was just like, I was so rocked. I couldn't reintegrate back into culture. I was just like, fuck, I think this happened. It's the biggest story ever. So people were asking me, even my neighbor who runs that Make-A-Wish Foundation, he was like, James, he goes, bro, I like you a lot and I got a lot of respect for you, but you lost me on this one. And I was like, I don't blame you, bro. I really don't. But listen to the witnesses. That's all I say. And I would tell people, and I realized I can't talk about it. All I can say is just listen to the witnesses. Don't take it from me. But I'm looking at that guy in the eyes, Joe. And I've been at this for 30 years. I'm working on my 7th film right now. I'm looking this guy in the eyes and I'm like, this guy probably drove an alien around. And it tripped me out so hard. And it ruined his life. He's to get this guy to go on camera, just like a week earlier, he was like, I don't care all the money in the world. I'm never coming forward. The risks are too high.
How did it ruin his life?
Because you're harboring this secret. You're being watched. You're being told not to ever talk about this. And you're looking over your shoulder all the time. And they call you, the military calls you periodically. They want to know where you are. And he's got this secret inside him that he can't tell the rest of the world. And he's thinking about all the different, everyone's out there speculating, is it real, is it fake, is it real, is it fake? And this guy drove a body around. Just think about that for a second. Think about the doctor who took the x-rays of this thing. Marco Leal, thank you, Marco, you're the man. Marco Leal found him 8 years ago. And he was like, he confirmed the story. He was still working at Regional Hospital. He goes, I'll never come forward. Marco kept going every year back and forth. Then he retired. And 4 years after he retired, he agreed to meet with us. He wasn't even sure he was going to go on. And I said, look, man, we'll film you from the back. We'll disguise your voice. Showed us photographs of him at the hospital. We know we've been trying to get at him. Excuse me. At the end of the interview, he said, thank you. I feel so much better. I've been shouldering that burden for 26 years, and I've so desperately wanted to tell somebody, to share that story with the rest of the world. And you meet these people, and you think, why on earth they didn't come to us? They're not trying to sell their story. We tracked them down and begged and pleaded with them to come forward. When I found Martha, the sister of the deceased military officer, Marco Chirizi, we were knocking on doors. I remember the sound guy from Rio de Janeiro. He was like, you're out of your mind. Dude. What are you doing? You can't just knock on random doors. I was like, man, if there's a will, there's a way. I'm going to find this lady. And we found her. And it was like this kind of sketchy area. And, you know, it's like when you get out of your car and you could see like people drawing the curtains back and looking at you and you're standing out. Like, dude, I stood out like a sore thumb, man. And then we walked up. I had Marco with me, thank God, and we had camera crews and stuff. It's kind of sketchy. And Marta appears, and her husband appears in this he's a big guy, and he's got like a white beater shirt on, and he looks like he wants to rip my fucking head off. And I'm like, and she's looking at me, and he's just looking at her going, Marta's looking at her husband, and her husband's looking at Marta like, give me the signal, I'll kill this guy. That's the fucking... And I was looking at Marco, and I was like, James, you need to think quick on your feet right now. And I said immediately, please translate this. I'm here to give your brother justice. I'm here to get the story out. Please, talk to me. And we developed a relationship with her slowly over that. And those were the first words that we exchanged. And we eventually got her to come forward, and we talked. She'd gone forward in the past, but she doesn't know who the hell I am.
I want to take you back to the doctor.
Okay.
When you talked to the doctor, what did he describe?
He said that it was a normal day, January 1996. It was a regional hospital. He said every day, and all of a sudden, all these military trucks and police cars showed up at the hospital. They come in armed, and they got a bag. They got a thing in a black body bag. And he was like, what the hell's going on here? They're like, you're going to be taking some x-rays. And he's like, okay. And they had him inside, and they had armed guards. And I was asking him, like, what was it like? Because when I interview witnesses, I always want them, I always ask them to project. Sometimes I'll even close my eyes because I'll use their words to recreate. So I'm like living it through them. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll close my eyes and I'll recreate the scenes in my head with their words, right? It's harder in Portuguese because I'm having to get it translated. But I ask questions like, what was the atmosphere like? Was there any talking? No talking. Super tense atmosphere. Very tense. Armed guards on the outside, armed guards on the inside, military trucks running. Nobody comes, nobody goes. And he said, first time in in the history of my career, I took the x-rays and I couldn't even verify that they were good because they took them immediately. And then they said, this event never happened. He said the stench in the hotel, in the hospital was overwhelming. And he goes through the different x-rays that he took, the abdomen, the head, the arms, the legs, the thorax, and it was incredible. In fact, Uberajada Rodriguez, if you're listening to this, he's one of the leading researchers. He's gone quiet. Peccaccini disappeared for 20 years.
Did he get to see images himself? Did he get to see the body himself?
Oh, he was right. Well, they didn't open the body bag, but he said the stench was just overwhelming.
So they x-rayed it through the body bag?
They x-rayed it through the body bag.
So he never got to see...
He did not see the alien.
And he didn't get to see the x-ray images or anything?
Nope. They wouldn't let him see a damn thing. Nope. Now, there were two doctors. There was a guy named Roger Lear. Roger Lear found out, these are people that I really want to meet. I mean, people are coming forward in droves right now. We just got 2 forensic pathologists for the first time ever working together to come forward to make statements, and they're providing documentation of the autopsy reports done on the deceased military officer. That's the first time ever these guys are coming forward. It's happening right now.
Let's explain what happened to people who haven't watched the documentary to the deceased military officer.
Yeah, so right after the 3 girls came within 8 to 10 feet of this creature or being or entity or ET, whatever you want to call it, about an hour later, it was about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I would say probably maybe around 5 o'clock, there were 2 military guys on patrol on the lookout for something unusual, is what they were told. They didn't say a UFO had crashed. They were on the lookout for something highly unusual. And it was Eric Lopes at the wheel and Marco Chirizi, military police, in the passenger seat. They were about 1.5 blocks to 2 blocks away from where the girls had seen the creature a couple of hours earlier. And this thing runs across the car in front of them. He had slammed his brakes on, and without a moment's hesitation, Marco Chirizi jumps out of the car and grabs the thing with his bare hands. Yeah. And he puts it in the back seat, and they drive it to a clinic, and the doctor is like, what the hell is that? Get it out of here. I don't know what, leave. So they went to regional hospital, and then ultimately it went to Humanitas Hospital. And so we have testimony from Military X that when he drove it from Humanitas Hospital, it's in the movie, but he drove it from Humanitas Hospital to as a military base where it spent the night in the truck for 1 night, and then it went from there to Espesex Campinas. It's like a university. It's where all the intellectual scientific heavyweights reside. And then it was there, I think, under examination, according to the witnesses that we talked to, for a day or 2, and that's when the Americans flew in to Campinas. And we have the radar military control officer who came forward last year, actually 2 years ago when we were there filming for the last time. His name is Marco Feres, F-E-R-E-S. And he came forward for the first time and he said, yeah, in January of 1996, this plane came in, USAF, he kept calling it, United States Air Force, came in. It didn't have the authorization of the Brazilian government. He was like, this thing can't land. And some higher up stepped into the room. This is his testimony. I'm just relaying what he said. He said some higher up came in the room and said, let it land. And it came and it landed at Campinas. And then from Campinas, 2 helicopters, according to him, flew to Varginha, Brazil, Varginha back to Campinas. Then they loaded something on the airplane and then off to the United States. And that's where the case goes cold.
JRE number 1233, Brian Cox explains why alien microbes may already exist in our solar system and why intelligent life could be far rarer than we think.
What are your thoughts on alien life, on life outside of this planet? Is this something you think about?
Yeah, I think there must be. Even in the solar system, I would not be surprised if we find microbes on Mars or on some of the moons of Jupiter or Saturn where there's liquid water.
Like Europa.
Yeah. And the reason is, if you think about, the reason I think that, and it's a guess, is because if you look at the history of life on Earth, then so Earth formed and it was just there was no life. It was a ball of rock. And almost as soon as it cooled down, we see evidence of life. So certainly 3.8 billion years ago, possibly even further back than that, we see evidence of life on Earth. So somewhere along the line, geochemistry, active geochemistry became biochemistry on Earth. And we have some idea, that if you get gradients of temperature and acid and alkaline and the conditions that are naturally present on the surface of oceans, then complex carbon chemistry spontaneously happens. So we know that life, almost certainly we know that life began on Earth. I mean, the other option is it came from space or something like that, but it probably didn't, right? It probably began on Earth. So that means that at least here, that happened. And that we know that the conditions that led to the origin of life on Earth were present on Mars 4 billion years ago. And we know that they're present on Europa today. So I don't see that there's anything special. Life is just chemistry. And the idea that geochemistry becomes biochemistry is not fanciful because it happened here. So I think that given the same conditions, it would be surprising to me if the same thing didn't happen, in that life begins. So that's to test that is one of the great frontiers of science now. It's one of the great challenges, which is why another reason we're interested in Mars, because we know those conditions were there. We know there were what's called hydrothermal vent systems on the floors of oceans on Mars 3.8 or 4 billion years ago. So it would be good to know if what I've said is right. And the way we find out is to find life or evidence of past life.
Are you aware of the speculation that was going around? How recent was it, that Occupy thing, the octopus eggs? There was a group of scientists that were speculating that it's panspermia, the idea of panspermia, that it's possible that octopi had come from somewhere else. Some frozen eggs had actually come from somewhere else and landed on Earth. And these are like legitimate scientists that were contemplating, not morons.
I don't think...
Have you seen this?
No, I didn't. But I mean, I think it's unlikely. So panspermia doesn't have to be unlikely.
Right.
I mean, for example, you might have seen the other day we found an Earth rock on the moon.
Yes.
Right. Well, it was back on Earth now because the Apollo astronauts brought it back, didn't they? It's 4 billion years old or something like that.
One of the oldest rocks ever found.
Yeah.
Right.
So we know that material gets transferred between planets. And so it's not inconceivable that microbes could survive that journey. Right. We know that microbes can survive in space, for example. So that isn't mad. It's probably unlikely, but it's not mad. But with the octopus, I hadn't heard that. But the thing is that the octopus is still extremely similar biologically to us. I mean, the differences are negligible.
Yeah.
So it's still got the same energy system with the single ATP and DNA and all that stuff. It's all very, very similar.
It was something about RNA and DNA. Did you find that article?
I'm looking at a different one from a different website. It's about the same thing. It has to do with the Cambrian explosion. And there were 33 authors on a paper that got published in the Progress in Biophysics and Molecular Biology that talked about this possibility. There are other people that disagree with it, though.
Right. I mean, I suppose I haven't seen it. So I think it's unlikely because the octopus is extremely similar to us. So that suggests a common origin to me. That I suppose the counter argument you could advance would be there's only one way to do life. So you could say that actually given, because the laws of physics and chemistry are the same everywhere. So maybe DNA is the only way to do it. So that's the way it gets done.
Which is why they're so similar to us.
Yeah,
although so alien as well.
Yeah, they're not, though. That's the thing about an octopus. That's why I'm surprised about it, because they're not that alien. They're very similar.
Well, they're in their abilities. I mean, their ability to transform their outer texture and their color almost instantaneously.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they have incredible camouflage abilities that really don't exist in the mammalian world.
Yeah, but on a cellular level, you look at an octopus cell under a microscope, and you wouldn't be able to tell the difference between an octopus cell and a human cell.
So the only way that would make sense is if all life comes from basically the same kind of building blocks and it just varies depending upon the conditions and where it takes place.
I'm guessing, but yes, that must be the only way you could sustain that, given that they're so similar to us, because they really are biochemically. is that's the only way it can be done, given the building block, the toolkit, the laws of nature, and the elements and so on that we have in our universe.
We have so many different life forms on our planet, but if we found anything that's remotely similar to what we have here on Earth on another planet, it would be such an incredible discovery. Like if we found a frog on the moon, I mean, the world would stop, right?
I'd be very surprised if we found a frog on the moon.
But I mean, if we found anything anywhere that is in any way similar, an insect on Mars.
Well, this is, I mean, as I say, it'd be micro. I think it'd be single-celled things. Remember, I mean, you mentioned the Cambrian explosion. So that is what we do know about Earth is that although life began, let's say, 3.8 billion years ago, it wasn't until around 600 million years ago or so, or maybe at most 700, that you see any complex multicellular organisms at all. So for something like 3 billion years, it was single-celled alone. And that's one of the reasons why I would guess, if I had to guess, I would say that microbes would be common because life began very quickly on Earth. And I wouldn't be surprised if we find it on Mars. But complex life, multicellular life, insects, plants, intelligence, I would guess would be very rare because it took so long on Earth to get there. And it was just slime. About 3 billion years of slime. It was that was it.